The sun was high, bright enough to make the glass walls of the cafe glow, when I realized I'd been stood up. My phone lay face up on the table, silent and accusing, the screen dark except for the time ticking forward, minute after minute, as if it wanted to make sure I noticed every second of my embarrassment. Around me, lunchtime laughter floated through the air, chairs scraped softly against tiled floors, and couples leaned toward each other with easy smiles. I sat alone, dressed for something that was supposed to matter, holding on to hope long after it should have let go. Rejection doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly across from you, sipping sunlight, while you pretend not to see it. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strange ways life surprises us when we feel most invisible, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Touch. Your support keeps these stories alive, and you never know who might need to hear this one today. My name is Arman Halim, and that afternoon felt heavier than it should have. I had arrived early, the way I always did, because being late made me anxious, and being early gave me the illusion of control. The cafe was chosen carefully too, bright and open, full of daylight, because I believed first meetings deserved warmth. I had even rehearsed small, harmless jokes in my head, the kind meant to ease nervous laughter. But as the minutes passed, the optimism I carried with me slowly leaked away, replaced by a familiar ache I knew too well. It wasn't just about being stood up, it was about the quiet accumulation of moments that told me I wasn't anyone's first choice. This wasn't my first disappointment. The year before had been a slow unraveling of plans I thought were permanent. I had lost my job during a sudden company restructuring, watched friendships thin out as everyone else stayed busy moving forward, and ended a long relationship that died not from drama, but from neglect. Dating again was supposed to be my proof that I was still standing, that I could still hope. So when I checked my phone again and saw no message, no apology, no explanation, it felt like confirmation of a fear I had tried hard to silence, that maybe I was simply forgettable. I sat there longer than I should have, pretending to read the menu, pretending to be busy, pretending I wasn't being watched by strangers who didn't know my story but could probably guess enough of it. That's when I became aware of someone beside me, not across from me, but close enough that I could sense their presence. The chair next to mine shifted slightly, and in the reflection of the window I saw a woman settle into the seat with a calmness that felt out of place in my spiraling thoughts. Her name, I would later learn, was Naira Bloom. At that moment she was just a quiet interruption in my misery. She didn't rush, didn't look at me with pity, didn't check her phone obsessively the way I had been doing. She simply sat there, angled toward the light, her expression thoughtful, as if she had stepped into the afternoon with no expectations at all. There was something grounding about her presence, like a pause button pressed on my embarrassment. The world didn't change instantly. The cafe was still full, my date was still absent, but the air around me felt different, softer somehow. I noticed small details I had been too tense to register before, the way dust floated lazily in the sunlight, the hum of conversation blending into a comforting background noise, the smell of coffee that reminded me of mornings when life felt simpler. For the first time since arriving, my shoulders relaxed. What unfolded next wasn't a grand romantic twist or a scripted moment. It was subtle, human, and deeply unexpected. Naira wasn't trying to rescue me or fix anything. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough to shift the narrative I had been telling myself, instead of seeing the empty chair across. From me as proof of rejection, I began to see it as space for something else, something unplanned. As the afternoon light shifted, I found myself laughing more than I had in months, surprised by how easily the weight inside me lifted. There was no pressure to impress, no performance to maintain, just two people sharing a moment that neither of us had planned, but both of us needed. I learned that Naira had come to the cafe to escape a heavy morning of her own, carrying disappointments that mirrored mine in different shapes. She had faced her own quiet losses, her own moments of feeling overlooked. Somehow, without trying, we met each other in that shared understanding. Time moved strangely after that. What felt like minutes stretched into something richer, fuller. The sun outside remained high, casting sharp shadows on the pavement, reminding me that this was still daytime, still the middle of life, not an ending but a continuation. I realized how rarely we allow ourselves to be open to interruptions, especially the good ones. We plan our lives tightly, afraid that if we let go even a little, everything will fall apart. But sometimes what falls away is exactly what needs to. As the afternoon progressed, I noticed something shifting inside me. The bitterness I had arrived with softened into curiosity. The self-doubt loosened its grip. I wasn't being chosen out of obligation or pity. I was simply being seen, and that felt revolutionary. I thought about how many times I had walked away from moments like this because they didn't match the story I had written in my head. How many chances at connection I had missed because I was too busy clinging to disappointment. Naira had a way of listening that made silence feel safe. In her presence, I didn't feel the need to explain myself or apologize for who I was. The parts of me I usually hid, my fear of starting over, my exhaustion from trying to be enough, felt less heavy when shared, even without words. The cafe, once a stage for my humiliation, had transformed into something intimate and grounding, a place where nothing extraordinary happened, and yet everything changed. Eventually, the moment had to end. Daylight doesn't pause for realizations, and life, generous as it can be, still moves forward. As we stood to leave, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. Not the rush of infatuation, but a steady warmth of gratitude. I had arrived expecting rejection and was leaving with something far more valuable: hope. Not the fragile kind that depends on someone else showing up, but the resilient kind that grows when you realize you are still capable of connection, even after disappointment. Walking out into the bright afternoon, I understood that being stood up hadn't been the worst thing that could happen to me. It had been the doorway to a moment I never would have experienced otherwise. Life hadn't ignored me that day, it had simply redirected me. As the days that followed unfolded, that afternoon stayed with me. It changed how I approached the world. I stopped seeing closed doors as personal failures and started viewing them as invitations to look around, to notice who was beside me instead of who was missing. I became kinder to myself, more patient with uncertainty, and in doing so I opened space for genuine connection, whether it lasted a moment or a lifetime. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a time you felt overlooked or surprised by kindness when you least expected it, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might be sitting alone right now, believing their moment has passed. Special request, please comment below and tell us, have you ever experienced an unexpected moment that changed everything for you? That afternoon taught me something simple yet profound. Not every missed connection is a loss. Some are quiet blessings in disguise, waiting patiently beside us until we're ready to notice. And sometimes the person who shows up instead is exactly the reminder we need that we are still worthy of being seen, still deserving of warmth, and still capable of finding light in the middle of an ordinary day.